We're recording now. Okay, we are live. It is Wednesday, September 17th. It's the Digital Roundtable Hour. We are live on LinkedIn and we are live on Zoom. And the show will be recorded and anybody can watch it later. I see folks are popping in. So before we get rolling here, we got John Sibley Butler playing some music.
People say that I'm the life of the party because I tell a joke or two. And although I may be laughing loud and hearty, deep inside I'm blue. So take a good look at my face. You see my smile looks out of place. If you look closer, it's easy to trace the tracks of my tears.
Woo, that's a new one, Johnny.
Yeah, I like
Well,
that. Very nice, Johnny.
thank you, sir. Thank you,
You'll
sir.
notice that this is praise coming from me. Treasure it.
And I'm very appreciative because I know it is a rare sentence that I hear that
Indeed,
praise.
it is.
So
Right?
we are spread out today. We have a great guest, but Johnny, the business community seems to be gearing up for what is going to be a fabulous weekend after the rates go down. And there's high expectations about real estate boom. And obviously, the other side of the equation is supposedly some people are predicting that there will be a collapse of the economy because of tariffs. Uh, Lots of movement going on in the geopolitical world. Innovation is thriving. AI is through the roofs. The Stargate project, which is $500 billion, it's on its way. And AI seems to be at the center of the universe, including when it comes to transportation and mobility that we'll get to discuss with our guest later. What's your thoughts, Johnny?
Well, President Reagan said that when your neighbor loses a job, it's a recession, and when you lose your job, it's a depression. And I've had so many ex-students who are MBA types, I might add, who are being laid off, mainly because what they do is very, very repetitive. Whether it's computer science, where now you just need one person rather than 100 people. You just need one person to tell AI how to write the algorithm for what you want to do. And then, of course, the repetitive nature of phone calls and telling people what to do. But to me, the most important thing is that internships are way down. Remember that it was the grunt work that the young kids did coming out of college, coming out of high school is way down. The grunt work is way down. And what that all equals to is that the change is here, and it's the recession is here, and as President Reagan said, but if you lose your job, it's a depression. So there's a lot of depressions going on with entry level job, and let's just call them repetitive tasks. On the other hand, I just met this morning with financial advisors, and the stock market is just absolutely going crazy. From the time I sit down to when I got up, it had gone up a number of points. So you've got a dynamic here where the real economy of goods and service is sort of dragging, and the shallow economy of money and credit is just really flying. And then in the midst of all of that, you have the negotiation of cities. People are moving around the United States. You have the renegotiation of flight. Southwest Airlines is doing all kind of interesting stuff. And then the innovation, though, again, is off of the chart. So I'm working now with companies from India, people from India. I'm working with, of course, companies in America. And the thing about it is that, as we've discussed, Andreas, the sad part is we can do $1 billion company with no employees. Okay. So as those kind of things continue to develop, the question becomes, what do we do with employment for the future? We've always said what our data tells us is that every technology has produced additional kinds of jobs. That's what we know, right? Every time we had a major shift in technology, it produced more jobs. We just know this from the historical data, whether from the telegraph to the telephone, from combustion engines, right, to electric engine or whatever the technology might be. Well, I think, Andrea, it's a little different this time. But what we have to do is this: we cannot moan and groan. We cannot moan and groan. We got to get back to the spirit of entrepreneurship. The killing of that young kid, whom I didn't even know, by the way, was just absolutely horrible. Uh, I mean,
Yes.
it's interesting because I hadn't heard his name, and my wife said, "Well, it's for the younger kids." So you've got that going on, and then the other Israeli stuff is pretty wild to me too. What's happening in Israel and Gaza, and so the news is a combination of what it's always been. But here's the difference, right? Not since in a long time, and I would say the oil crisis of, I don't know, 1970, 1974. It's the uncertainty about the paycheck has been so grave. The uncertainty about buying a home has been so grave. The uncertainty of a paycheck with student loans. In other words, Andreas, in my generation, people came out in the generation before me, especially, it was all about the GI Bill. Medical doctors went to military, and 98% of medical doctors had been to service in their country, and everything was paid for now. But the uncertainty now about buying a home with student loans, the middle class, there are books that's coming out about America becoming a third world country, as defined by our quote colonial status. And the idea is that when you go to San Francisco and watch the raw materials go to China and come back as finished goods, that is the definition of a colony. But what we still have that spirit of innovation and that spirit of entrepreneurship. Cities will be renegotiated. The southern cities have got to get their educational efforts together, much like the Northeast did hundreds of years ago, because our education levels in this part of the region, say from Texas all the way to Florida, does not match the education that brought us to where we are in America. So we need to do a much better job from elementary school up through trade school, up through college, or whatever you're doing. But my area of innovation and entrepreneurship is all about the cloud. So everything is on the cloud. And what that means, Llewellyn, is that you might walk out to your car one day and want to hear some music, and you have to go buy it from the cloud to hear it. What that might mean, Llewellyn, is that if you want a special kind of thing on your automobile, maybe just a window that goes, an automatic window, it won't come standard anymore. You've got to register on the cloud and do it. So Llewellyn, remember that right now when I listen to my music, I have to register on the cloud. I don't have a record anymore. Everything I do, they're telling me, "Are you ready?" Oh, by the way, to open up this attachment, why don't you join for $10 a year? So everything is being priced, and Andreas, capitalism has migrated from what we know to a cloud capitalism.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned before, this cloud capitalism is controlled by 3 or 4 companies. And that means that we're uploading everything. That means we're becoming serfs. We upload everything for free. And I think it's very, very sociologically because they're teaching us how to act, Andreas.
Mhm.
When you have to go and buy something, you know to pick up your device and you know where to go. So therefore, your entire behavior is being changed by your device. So we have the cloud socialization of people, just like they had to socialize us from going to the rail cars to the airport. The only difference now is right there in your pocket, and the socialization is every day. It's interesting times, and we're going to see if smartness, or being savvy rather than smart about the economy, can do one thing. In my lifetime, we've never had a competitor to America. In my lifetime, the hegemony was America. And right now, I think that if you look at what's happening and you look at what China is doing, then we have a quote competitor. And I say that not in a negative sense, but we just never had that in my lifetime. China is trying to recruit professors from America to move to China, and we have just never had it before in my lifetime. When something happens around the world, somebody needs a bridge, it's the Chinese that's building it. Somebody needs a school, it's the Chinese that's building it. And so we've got to deal with the fact that we're in a collision course with our basic goal, which is democracy, right? Have democracy. And for the first time, when I was in high school, we had communism versus democracy. And for the first time, our biggest competitor it's a communist rule with different kinds of marketplace kind of initiatives. So it's interesting times to be alive for a scholar to think about, to model things.
Let me get Llewellyn in here. Llewellyn, what say you?
Well, I'm going to be a little briefer, I hope. We're in a very precarious moment, historically one which might be compared with 1840 or 1914. The world is disintegrating, or old alliances are disintegrating. I just came back from a high-level conference which was under Chatham House rules, so I can't say too much about it, but outside of Paris. And people were talking about the Atlantic divorce. If Johnny mentions that we've never had a competitor in his lifetime, and he's quite correct, we have never had the Atlantic as dividing in his lifetime either. Europe has realized that that America will not necessarily have its back in the future, and that it has to divert resources to defense. It has to create not only the weapons, but also the structures to use them. The European Union is 27 countries. They don't agree on everything. So they're going in one direction. They're very disturbed, and they're terrified of a Russian invasion across Europe, at least into the Baltic states. So it's a very unhappy picture vis-a-vis America in Europe. In this country, there is a lot of fear of recession, which I think is probably well placed, and political fear. We have things are being done by the federal government that have not been done in Johnny's lifetime either. People are being grabbed on the streets without due process, sent to countries they've never been to, without any opportunity to confront the allegations against them. It is a very disturbing time. When it comes to employment, you have a division. White-collar jobs are being, as we have predicted on this broadcast previously, white-collar jobs are being annihilated by AI. But blue-collar jobs, there's a terrible labor shortage. If you want to build a new nuclear plant, you may not be able to do it, not because of regulation, not because you can't raise the money, but because you can't raise the workers. If we start building the 10 plants the president has asked for, traditional old-fashioned big nuclear power plants, not small modular reactors, we don't have a labor, we don't have the welders, we don't have the people to pour the concrete, we don't have a large enough working class. There's a shortage. Architects tell me they cannot proceed with projects because of no workers. On the other hand, traditional jobs in offices, to put it rather simply, people are falling out of work. It's a tremendous time of job adjustment, and that is a cause of fear as well. So it's a time of great anxiety. And the stock market is not an indication of the future or the emotional state. It is an indication that there is a lot of money around, and it is looking for a birth. And I'd like to go on and talk to Ernest because I'm much more interested in what Ernest has to say. I thought, Ernest, you're into, if I recall, you know something about vertical takeoff.
Let me introduce you real quick, Llewellyn. Ernest Huffman is the Aviation Planning and Education Program Manager at the North Central Texas Council of Governments, which is basically managing pretty much this geography called DFW. Maybe it's a little larger than that. The aviation program is currently engaged in planning for surface access to regional aviation facilities, the continued development of the North Texas Aviation Education Initiative, and the uncrewed, no people aircraft system safety and integration as initiative, among others. The 16 county region in North Central Texas is home to a variety of public and private aviation facilities. Of the more than 600 aviation facilities, 45 of them are public use facilities and 30 are in the FAA National Plan for Integrated Airport Systems. Ernest, welcome to the program. It's always great to see you.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So Ernest, tell us a little bit, educate us a little bit about given that I just introduced in detail what you are all about.
Yeah.
What's on your lap right now? What are you working on? What's keeping you awake at night?
We got a lot, and I want to pivot back to your original point, comment on AI technologies and the change that's going on. So what I've been telling my kids, my sons, and their friends, because they're all college age and just before college age, right? They're all young men. And I've been telling them with AI, they're all growing up with AI. They've been using Chat GPT for the last 5, 6 years in their studies and in their classwork. And I keep telling them, and a lot of them are in school for business. If you are going into school for business and you're trying to join this new corporate environment, then you need to specialize in AI from start. You need to be a specialist in the technology now. And when you go on to these companies, you need to be the specialist for these companies because while all companies now are employing and using AI systems, they're not experts in it. There is always a place right now, in particular in history, for
Mm-hmm.
folks to build up their AI programs within corporate environments, for folks to train others to use it, and for folks to determine and discover how to use AI technologies to move corporate verticals throughout. So I'm telling folks, and just like throughout history, I know Dr. Butler mentioned various changes in history where folks had to pivot from lifestyles. I mean, when the automobile was created, horses and buggies, that industry went out, right? When the aircraft was created, rail travel changed a bit, right? When the computers came about, that changed things, telephones, that changed people's lives. This AI thing is just another opportunity for you to pivot. And what I specialize in, what I talk about a lot, in particular with aviation careers, is those I like to find those opportunities where where things are changing, so folks can take advantage of them. And that's what we're talking about here today with autonomous vertical takeoff aircraft, the flying cars, for in layman terms. These are to employ all kinds of new systems that didn't exist before. You're going to need tons of AI technologies built into these particular aircraft for them to be autonomous and with all transportation mechanisms like rail, bus, and folks are typically worried about losing their jobs. Will we need more pilots? Will we need more truck drivers? Will we need more engineers driving the rail with these autonomous and AI technologies? And what I tell folks, for a while, we won't. We'll still need all of you. We'll still need pilots. We'll still need engineers. We'll still need truck drivers, even regardless of these autonomous transportation mechanisms coming about. But if you're in that space, you
Mm-hmm.
got to be readily adaptable. Gone are the days when you're going to stay with a company for 30, 40 years. That's over. So
Right.
you're within a corporate environment. You're not working for yourself. You're not an entrepreneur like Dr. Butler said, and you're not building your own companies and portfolios. And you're working within, you're in the rat race per se. You got to be flexible. You got to be adaptable. And with the democracy of knowledge out there, we got access to knowledge and education to the point where historically we never had that. Anybody can teach themselves and learn something about a particular field. Folks got to be more proactive in what they're doing to weather the storm.
Sure. Sure. Johnny?
I agree, and I think that what has happened, I think that the mathematics has been embedded in the stuff that with AI, and if we understand the basis of whether it's what used to call arithmetic, right? What is arithmetic? Where AI is advanced arithmetic, and I think that what's going to happen is, and my conclusion is this: people ask me about leadership. because these are the things that people are looking for. I think that the military will become, and West Point will become much more prominent now, just like it did after World War II. Most of our leadership principles, Sloan's book, My Life with General Motors, really came from the management of technology from military institutions. So I think you're right, Ernest. I think the advice is good. You look at where you are, and I always say that the closer you get to your work coming from the market, the better off you are.
Mhm.
That's right. But everything is interesting, but it always has been in America since its very, very inception,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And things have changed. And so I think that if I look at what you're doing, Ernest, we were in conversation with Andreas before, and we were talking about corridors of vehicles that fly,
Yep.
corridors of, I mean, private roads for vehicle, let's just say 18 wheelers with no driver. That's better than something, right? Let's create a whole private thing like that, and there'll be lots and lots of opportunities that will develop. What AI cannot replace is reason,
Yep.
intuition, a strategy, and just plain old common sense.
Yep.
So I would like to hear more about how you're thinking about AI for your future, or what you're
Yeah.
doing, as Llewellyn said, and in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah. So, and then the big thing, the big push, and my closest relationship with AI technologies, like I mentioned, is all time advanced aviation. So think eVTOLs, electric vehicles that take off and land vertically. Think anything that's electrically charged and anything that's autonomous in the air. And I kind of try to work. I try to be multimodal in my decision making. So I try to work with the surface transportation, the autonomous surface transportation industry as well. So we got maybe 3 to 4 autonomous 18-wheeler companies working in the Metroplex. And I'm working hand in hand with them to make sure our solutions are multimodal in terms of our planning. But in terms of, we got a lot of things cooking up here in North Texas with advanced air mobility. First off,
Mhm.
we won with the help of, well, Texas A&M submitted the application. We're going to have located here the Center for Advanced Aviation Technologies. That's a federal opportunity put out by the previous administration. Oh no, the most recent administration, where we'll have $35 million per year to research advanced aviation technologies in the Metroplex. So I designed various corridors where we fly missions, various use cases. Think of using these particular aircraft for freight movement, for people movement, and medical use cases. So we can fly doctors in, we can fly medical goods and services to rural areas and that kind of jazz. And we were doing a lot of that flying in the west of the Metroplex. So think city of Fort Worth up to Denton, and we're
Hmm.
going to have a big aerospace laboratory between the city of Fort Worth and Mineral Wells, where we got the perfect airspace to do the testing. But what that's going to bring to our particular area is that market sooner than later. So you guys may see forecasts about advanced air mobility and flying cars flying around the world. But I'll tell you now, we'll be competently and really flying them here in North Texas within the next year or two, not just from a research perspective, but also with viable use cases built out by corporate interests, built out by hospital systems, and built by emergency professionals.
So how far are we off from that? I mean, if I'm planning, for example, like
Yep.
my life has changed now with Von Lane. I
Yep.
think Von Lane is giving the competition to the airlines. So Llewellyn, we have a luxury bus. If I want to go to Dallas from Austin, it looks like a private airplane inside. You're fed from the time you get on. You're given drinks from the time you get on. And my good buddy Herb Kelleher, I said, Herb, are you going to invest in that? And he said, no, because they're trying to take my airline out. Now, that bus would be driverless in the future. There's no doubt about it. Probably with his own private. So how far am I from that? And how did you see the mentality of people? Let's call it the retraining of people, because the retraining of people, it usually go through generations, right?
Yep.
So, for example, Llewellyn at one time would not get on an elevator, did not have an elevator operator, right? And
No, I would have gotten on them, but they weren't very often
it
powered.
wasn't often, right? And then there are people who would never get on a train at Dallas Fort Worth Airport, right, with no conductor. But now you got a train going 100 miles an hour with no conductor. So how
Mhm.
did you see the retraining for flight for individuals. I call it a sociological return training and the psychological retraining of individuals.
Oh yeah, the human factor is regarding the technology. It's going to take some time to socialize folks to be able to travel in this manner. But your first question was how long until we can actually see these? So
Mhm.
these aircraft will be piloted. You'll see piloted instances of these use cases by as soon as 2028, I'd say. By 2028, you'd be able probably be able to take one of these aircraft from let's say McKinney Airport to DFW Airport, but it will be piloted. For these to be autonomous, I'd say you won't see that until maybe 2035, and you probably won't see a scaling of that particular technology till about 2040 or so. And it still will only be used to the extent like the rideshare companies were used early on. I remember when Lyft and Uber X first started, it was a very niche group of folks within cities and metropolitan areas that used the technology and that trusted it. And you've seen over the years now it's commonplace. Now most people will get in an Uber, most people will get in a Lyft vehicle. But when it first started, I want to say back in 2010 or so, it was a very small market. It's going to be the same with these particular technologies. It's going to start off with a smaller group of folks, early adapters, who are interested in being first. The same kind of folks are interested in being first with the new cell phone or first with the new gaming system. Probably more younger Gen Z. I don't even know what the monikers are with the
We're back to
generation
alpha.
Gen
We're back to
Zers.
alpha.
Yeah. Oh, we're in alpha now. So the
Yeah.
alphas, those folks will probably be the first to start, and probably people like me who are into the technology. But for it to be, scaled out for common use, you won't see that until 2040 plus. But it's gonna take folks like me to continuously educate the populace on the technology, continuously introduce them. And the way I like to introduce them to the technology, because we're trying to be a center of gravity for the technology, where we want to be first in manufacturing, first in training, first in flying and piloting these things, and first in developing the use cases. I'm drawing the parallel or the connection of folks with the opportunity of the industry, with the fact that this is going to change and democratize our aviation and bring in more of the population to work in the field.
Well, talk about this pilot stuff. I mean, is it going to be as strenuous as Llewellyn King, who's a pilot, had to learn to be a pilot? I mean, can anybody tell me
It
about
shouldn't
that?
be. And that's what their goal is with these technologies, and that's the main use with the AI system is to make majority of your flight as automated as possible, and trying to take out the trained pilot from the loop. Because as we know, the highest call center with any aviation corporation is the pilot, is the labor force, is
Mm-hmm.
by far the highest. And then the second highest in aviation would be fuel, which is they're getting rid of the fueling because it's going to be electrically charged vehicles. So they're getting rid of the combustion fuel. So it's electrically. So they're getting rid of the pilot call center, and they're trying to get rid of the fuel or lower the fueling cost center or the powering of these vehicles cost center to drive down the cost. But what that does is give more opportunity for folks to use the technology as well as work in the field, from my perspective.
Okay, so in
Because
other
people got
words,
to build these aircraft.
it can be a person. I mean, it could be someone who is not they had to go through the same pilot training that Llewellyn went through.
Yeah. And I'm a trained pilot as well. And to be a commercial pilot, you get 1,500 hours
Yeah.
is standard right now. No, you won't have to do any of that. They have some of these eVTOL aircraft that are in production right now in Texas, by the way, that you can buy personally today, and you go through a few hour course, and they'll sell you the aircraft, and you go about your business. That's how automated the systems are supposed to be. Now, I
Wow.
wouldn't get in one of those right now personally, but that's the goal of that industry is
Well,
to
what
be able
about
to take
flight
somebody.
space? What about space and the controllers? And you got to be a certain level, a certain altitude.
The goal is for you to not have to worry about all that. The system will do it all for you. And the system's supposed to be as redundant, have enough redundancy where it can take care of any safety scenario as well. That's how they're building these aircraft, and they're using AI to do it.
I want to get Llewellyn King's comment on this.
I'm not commenting. I'm here to ask questions and learn.
Go
And
ahead.
was hoping to ask Ernest a few direct questions. One of which is, will these automated aircraft fly in the equivalent of Victor Airways, or will they fly randomly, like piloted aircraft can?
Yeah, so depends on the operator and the use case. Some of them will be, and you said Victor Airways. I'm not familiar with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I said Victor Airways, which the airlines
Oh, vectors. Yeah,
are
vectors. Yes, yes,
not
yes, yes, yes.
obliged to, but most
We
air traffic is
That
directed.
has yet to be determined. The industry doesn't want to have dedicated corridors for flight. They want to be able to fly where they want to fly. They want to be able to fly like a traditional aircraft, and that's what
Are
they're
we getting,
for.
Ernest, are we getting any better endurance out of electric aircraft? Endurance, last time I looked, I talked to the chap in I think in Switzerland who had the round the world record in a solar plane, but who works on electric aircraft, and he had a trainer, but it only had a half hour's endurance, which is very brief.
Yeah.
You can't do very much in a half hour if that's the total endurance of the aircraft it has to land. How are we doing on endurance?
That I'm glad you bring that up. That's one of the biggest issues with the industry right now. The battery technology just hasn't caught up with their ideas. So what they're hoping is that there are more developments and faster acceleration with the development of battery technology to allow for more endurance. Because right now the battery technology is very heavy, and Llewellyn, with aircraft, weight is a very big issue, and the batteries are very heavy. And the heavier the batteries, the less passengers you can have, right? So these aircraft right now will probably be the biggest one you'll get is probably four people on the aircraft just because of the battery power. And that aircraft won't be able to take you far for very long currently with current battery technology. And that's another reason why you won't see a large scale of these technologies until 2040, 2045, because they need the battery technology to catch up with their ingenuity.
You mentioned hydrogen and airlines being interested in hydrogen.
Yep.
I think you did. But there you was a problem of the weight of the container for the hydrogen. It has to be compressed, and it has to be highly compressed, which means that, as far as I know, there was an attempt to host hydrogen in carbon, and it didn't work very well. The Navy does it with torpedoes, actually, but it doesn't work very well otherwise. And the early hopes that you could, with a few carbon slivers, somehow get a great deal of hydrogen in didn't work out. So how are we doing on on compressing hydrogen or
Yeah.
getting hydrogen into the air without a lot of weight penalty?
Yeah, that's something a lot of the OEMs are looking into is hydrogen powered aircraft. I know Airbus is looking to, they announced a few years ago that they want to put hydrogen hubs at various airports around the country to work with that particular industry, but they're a little bit behind. They're behind the eVTOL industry on
And that would be hydrogen using a fuel cell.
correct.
Okay, that's very interesting. What excites you? You're obviously excited about this brave new world of flying.
Yeah.
What in particular excites you?
I mean, it's all very exciting because I've been in aviation for 25 plus years. Most of it's been traditional aviation. And to me, I got in aviation because I wanted to be an astronaut. So to me, I just see this particular industry, the autonomous and the unmanned aviation industry being that next new frontier that didn't exist my entire career. We didn't have much new outside of the Honda jet that came about earlier in the early 2000s or so. We haven't had much new innovation in traditional aviation for years. And to be at the forefront of this burgeoning industry is very exciting to me. It's very exciting to me, and it's a great opportunity. We run an aviation career outreach initiative, so I speak in a lot of schools, a lot of various communities, a lot of different clubs. I go to Rotary clubs. I speak to a lot of different folks on aviation careers, and to have something new and exciting and vibrant to bring to the table, and to get more people involved with my industry. That's what excites me.
We've been able actually to automatically land large aircraft for a very long time, more about 25 years. We could fly them without pilots across the Atlantic without danger, except the public probably wouldn't buy it. We're going to have a big public relations problem as the public gets adjusted to the fact that they're getting into an airplane that does not have a human being at the controls, or if it does, that human being is on the ground somewhere, not in the front of the airplane. How are you going to tackle that information problem or that psychological problem?
continuous education from my perspective. I think, and the way we're doing it is to introduce our community to the technology at every phase. So we've been talking and introducing our communities to, since the Uber Elevate days. Uber announced their autonomous aircraft business back here as early as 2017. So our particular region's been hip to what's going on from since then. But I think, like I mentioned with the Uber X and the Lyft, the rideshare particular program is going to take a long time to socialize folks to get used to flying an aircraft that aren't piloted. It's going to take
Would it,
it's going to take really good safety numbers initially. We can't have any accidents. We can't have
would
any
I,
false alarm.
would I be right on this to assume that the first use of automated aircraft will be for freight, not for humans?
Yeah, 100%. It would be for freight. And that's simply because of the safety case is easier to make um, flying to and from with freight. And that's something we're developing here in North Texas initially is the freight and the medical use cases is very
Yeah.
significant
Well,
because
we've seen,
we can use these aircraft as a proxy to traditional helicopters, which are more expensive, a lot louder, and they can't take off and land in most places.
so you're talking really about drones, about quadricopters.
Oh, and eVTOLs.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
Yep.
What sort of freight would you see being carried initially?
It's
Given
it's definitely gonna be smaller parcels. So I'm thinking highly fidelity, maybe hazardous or things that corporate entities, manufacturers need quickly. We've been working with the semiconductor chip industry to see what their needs are. They might have, particularly if you have a semiconductor plant and you have a part that you need in order for it to run, we want to be able to get it to you quickly. Um, um, so anything that's smaller, because weight is an issue with these aircraft, like I mentioned, we won't be able to haul thousands of pounds yet for freight.
very
It's going to have to be
interesting.
smaller. It's going to have to be smaller, um, important goods.
Ernest, talk to me about who you're going to take out. Who will not exist anymore in 2040?
I want nobody.
Will it be Uber? Is that your
No,
competition?
Yeah.
no. I don't think this industry, I don't think the scale is going to be large enough for a long time for it to take to eliminate any of the industries that currently exist. We'll
Okay.
still need ride shares. We'll still need pilots. I don't see us taking out anybody anytime soon.
What I see personally is actually an enhancement on the transportation side to locations that don't have any roads. So with VTOL, with a sophisticated VTOL infrastructure, you don't actually need roads anymore. And so you can actually move goods and people and back and forth, and you can set up the cities of the future anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And see, because I'm in DFW and we've already spent so much money on our highway system, I'm not going to tell anybody we're getting rid of the highways. That's not happening here.
Right.
But in other places,
Yeah.
like California, northern on the West Coast, mountainous terrain,
Mm-hmm.
rural. So Oklahoma could use it a lot, where the infrastructure is just not built out. Some southern states where the
That's
infrastructure
true.
is dilapidated, is not as built out. These going to be lifesavers.
Correct.
Very interesting, Andreas. The elimination of roads.
Well, the roads are very expensive and costly, right? So if you don't need to maintain them, so for one or two trucks to use them once in a while in a remote area, and now you can do, very sophisticated self-driven flying cars, then, that sounds to me like the logical thing to do.
You're
In
going to
places that
need a
don't have
lot of
roads,
energy, though.
like
If
think
you're,
Permian Basin, like
if
Permian
you put,
Basin, the trucking industry in and out of the Permian Basin where there aren't roads. They're driving over the sand, they're driving over gravel. These
Mm-hmm.
particular aircraft would be save a lot of money, save a lot of wear and tear on these trucks. You won't,
Sure.
you might,
but Ernest, are you not going to need an enormous amount of energy? Because to put anything in the air is very energy intensive.
You don't need the grid for that.
The initial lift is very, very expensive.
You don't need the grid for that.
If
You
we
don't
go
need the
to all
grid.
of these highly sophisticated electric aerial vehicles, which I think we're going to have to, it'll be the equivalent of data centers all over again in the demands on the electric supply system.
No, and Andrea is probably trying to answer a bit of that, but I think we're going to need we need stronger power grids anyway. Our airports today, some of in particular our commercial service airports, are going to need more power anyway with ground electrical vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hoping that this technology grows alongside the electrical surface transportation vehicles, and that will bring about the increase of energy grids around the metroplexes. And that's nevertheless
But over time, Ernest, over time, right? It's not going to happen quickly,
yeah,
but
definitely over
but
time.
over time, this vertiports will have self-generation, using solar energy and hydrogen and nuclear or
Yeah, I'm
battery.
looking at micronuclear plants.
Exactly. So over time, really, when you think about it, if we move vertical, why do we need roads? We won't need them. I mean, they're expensive. Roads are very expensive to maintain.
Oh, supremely.
Yeah.
Ditto high-speed rail. So I talk to anybody who's talking about high-speed rail, and we know we're talking about that a bit up here. And
Hmm.
I want to say that this industry is a direct competitor because we can't move the weight that rail could
Sure.
move, but it's a lot cheaper investment.
Hmm.
The needs are a lot cheaper. The displacement to communities isn't there
Yep.
because we can use existing infrastructure, in particular initially. We're planning on building on the backbone of our airport network. You mentioned earlier we
Hmm.
got 45 of them in the Metroplex, so we don't have to build a bunch of um, infrastructure for this industry. So,
Ernest, this is very interesting in terms of rural areas also,
mhm.
in terms of getting to where you need to go,
Yep,
in terms of, I wouldn't say the replacement of the automobile, but certainly you said before that no industry would be challenged that much.
yeah, I wouldn't.
Well, I would have to disagree with you, right? Because I think when things take off, when there was a speech given at the Railroad Associations by Amelia Earhart, and she said the following in the smoke-filled room: very, very soon, people will fly from coast to coast, and your castles and your trains will not be needed. And everybody laughed her out of the room because nobody can visualize, see, the offshoots of how strong something can take off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now we have all kind of curves about the use of technology. We have a Kosmetsky curve, as we've plotted it over the years. And when it goes up so fast, for example, AI went here and then it dropped all the way down here after 2 months. But maybe you are sitting on something that would take off and you cannot perceive how fast it's going to take off.
So my answer to that, okay, I might have been facetious when I say it's not going to displace anybody, but the
Yeah.
timing on that displacement, I think, is in the far future.
Okay.
And I think that displacement will probably go alongside a lot of different changes in our economy. So we went from industrial to service industries, right?
Yep.
I think domestically we're going to change to something else by the time this industry takes off. So it's probably going to be a minor cog in the change in the economy,
Well,
in
let
my
me
opinion.
let me take you back to earlier days and just imagine that you can control a pigeon. Okay. Let's imagine that you can control
They
a
used to.
pigeon and how a pigeon delivered information in earlier days.
Yep.
Okay. And everybody knows about the Birdman of Alcatraz. Everybody knows about the birds that we're utilizing. I think what you might have in your hand here is an AI pigeon that can do about anything when scale.
Sure.
When
It
it's
can deliver
scaled,
mail. It
to
can
my point,
deliver
I don't see
mail.
the scale to maybe I don't see the scale where the
It can,
influence will be seen until probably the year 2100.
well, I mean, it could deliver messages in your house. It could deliver messages from your kids. And in wartime, of course, the pigeon was utilized. And right now, by the way, the Chinese have a mosquito type.
Yeah, I seen that.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
A mosquito
The
type
big one.
drone that can sit just sit on the windshield and it looks so real. So I think that the uses
I think that's
of
propaganda, by the
your
way.
technology, you cannot imagine.
I think that's propaganda, by the way, but
You think, well, so was the airplane at one time, right? It was all science fiction, right?
mhm.
But I'm thinking of everything to, delivering hats and football games to picking up the ball after I mean, everything.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But more importantly, the disturbance of the routine of our everyday life and what we do. Because what technology does again it changes what
I
we
do.
do. It just
I mean,
changes
you
what we
can
do.
see what this phone has done, just the
Oh
small amount of
God.
time it's existed, because it ain't existed that long. And a lot of changes have come. I used to say, because this phone costs $1,200. And I used to always say, I wouldn't pay that much money unless it did my homework for me. Now it will do your homework.
Well,
It does
Llewellyn used to say,
everything. It does everything.
Llewellyn used to say, I want it in 2 weeks. Now is I want it in 2 seconds.
Mhm.
So look at how the routine of life. I just think
But
that anything is
let
put
me
in.
chime in here, Johnny, and share something. So Ernest, leading the North Texas coalition of governments, and many others, joined this exercise project that we did at Texas State, where we're trying to figure it out. What are the requirements and the things needed to launch what I call the flying economy? And
Mm,
if you think about it,
mm.
what Ernest is driving and the team of people that work with him and what's going on in Texas is a new chapter on economic development. It's early stage. It's hard to tell when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and what you're alluding to about the applications and the new use cases. But it is a brand new paradigm of economic development. It's sort of like you had the newspaper, and then you had the radio, and then you had the TV, and then you got the cable, and now you got the internet and the cloud, right? And the same thing is going to happen. This new distributed mobile technology driven AI self-driving vehicles of all sizes are going to create a brand new economic development platform.
Yep. And that's what we're banking on here in North Texas. That's why I'm optimistic about that industry, because I need as many of our folks in North Texas to be able to take advantage. I need people working.
I envision a hover chair match where we would have the first hover chair duel between John Sibley Butler and Llewellyn King, and we would broadcast it at the UT Stadium. And there will be this fight of hover chairs using AI intelligence answering questions, maybe a little bit of escape room thing, and a little bit of Houdini going on, magic. It's a new sport, and these two gentlemen would be the first titans.
AI wouldn't stand a chance against Llewellyn because it doesn't have his history. AI might be able to tell you what happened in 1960, but it can't feel what happened in 1960. And that's the
Llewellyn, any final thoughts?
No, I think, Ernest, you're in a very exciting place and a very exciting time, and what you're doing is totally fabulous. So I'm just glad to see you again. I hope we have the opportunity to sit down and talk about these things for some time, because you clearly are a visionary who is more than a visionary, you're a hands-on visionary, and that's pretty fabulous.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Johnny, any final thoughts?
Well, I think it's fascinating. It's almost sci-fi. It's almost like looking at the Twilight Zone when I was
Mhm.
in high school. It's almost sci-fi, but airplanes were once sci-fi,
Hmm.
and I think that's very, very good. And of course, it has made all kind of lyrics obsolete in songs.
Yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
hear
Well,
one?
Ernest, thank you for being with us. We'll circle back and keep track of what the progress, and hopefully, a few months from now or a year or so, things will woo us, and we will be in a much better place.
No, by next year, this time, I'll have a lot more to talk about because I would imagine we'll have some flights going on here.
Mhm.
Ernest, there was one time when you had to call the operator to make a call.
Johnny, take us
Operator,
away. Yeah.
why don't you help me place this call? You see the number on the matchbook is old and faded. She's living in LA with my best old ex-friend Ray. A guy she said she knew well and sometimes hated. Now, isn't that the way they say it goes? But let's forget all that. Give me the number if you can find it, so I can call just to tell them I'm fine and to show I overcome the blow. I learned to take it well. I only wish my words could convince myself that it just wasn't real. It's not the way it feels.
Good stuff.
You had to call the operator just to make a telephone call.
Goodbye, all. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Mm-hmm.